problems with the Washington Army brass in D.C. He had problems with most of the admirals, although he liked and worked well with Bull Halsey. But a pain in the ass. And see, normally when you get these kind of people and you're looking for a better level of unity, these people are not worth the trouble, especially if they don't perform well at a certain point. You take those opportunities to axe those malcontent, those poisonous people, those divas, unless, of course, they're like Frank Sinatra, or Judy Garland, or one of these, Sammy Davis Jr., Michael Jackson, any of the giants right out there where you just go, I don't care how weird they are, however many green M&Ms they want in their dressing room, I don't care. Just get me Frank Sinatra. What that means, though, is that people like that, you invest really high hopes, and they become so valuable. If you sold out the Palladium for Frank Sinatra, you can't cancel Frank Sinatra without there being big problems. And the U.S. takes the opportunity that Douglas MacArthur's stature provides them to invest a lot of hope in Douglas MacArthur. They turn him into a hero, by the way. The U.S. government takes a guy who's already 2/3 of the way to fitting that mold already, pours the Disney-like propaganda hose on him, gives him a Congressional Medal of Honor in the near future to make a superhero out of MacArthur. The reason this is important is, well, what if you're sitting in the Philippines and you realize you are screwed, you are doomed, there's no way this is going to work out, the odds are totally against you. The only thing that gives you any hope in the Philippines is that you have a transcendental military leader in charge. It's hard to describe what people thought, especially the Filipino thought MacArthur was capable of. He could pull a rabbit out of his hat, militarily speaking, at any time. Can't rule out Douglas MacArthur. So you can't remove Douglas MacArthur either without that whole pillar of hope collapsing. He's too big to fire, and he knows it. You're stuck with him. And the problem is that initially he does not perform well at all. Historian Ronald H. Spector said that the government would have been fully justified in removing MacArthur. To be honest, once again, I tend to cut people slack in this situation. MacArthur and the Americans and the Filipinos are going to face the same kind of acid test of combat, exposure moment that the British and the Imperial troops in Malaya got to experience, right? Where all of your pre-war estimations are put to the test, your assumptions, your plans, all that stuff gets the final exam. And as usual, and this is always the problem with war games and whatnot, I mean, you generally don't assume for situations that seem too wild to contend with, and I can guarantee you MacArthur's war plans did not take into account the idea that the Japanese might control the air and the sea, uncontested control of the air and the sea, by the way. That's not generally in your assumptions, and that's going to be the case. So right there, a little difference between the pre-war plans and the actual war conditions. The other problem that they had in Malaya will be replicated here as well, which is that the decisions made before the conflict breaks out will doom everybody. Before I start criticizing General MacArthur's plan for defending the Philippines, and of course, as a history fan, I'm totally entitled, aren't I, to criticize one of the U.S.'s major generals throughout its history. Totally qualified to do that. But before I do,